I'd like to thank Chairman Atkins for being here today and for his leadership at the SEC. Established in 1934, the Securities and Exchange Commission is a primary federal regulatory agency responsible for enforcing U.S. security laws. The Commission has a three-part mission: protect investors, maintaining fair, orderly, and efficient markets, and facilitating capital formation. The SEC has played a critical role in helping American capital markets become the most robust and attractive of any in the entire world. If our capital markets are to remain the envy of the world, we need to encourage capital formation and ease regulatory burdens that make it too difficult for businesses to grow. Too often, past leadership at the SEC has implemented sweeping regulations without considering public feedback or carefully weighing the costs and benefits. I'm glad to see the Commission has already taken steps to roll back some of these regulations that would have made American companies less competitive in an ever-changing global economy. In addition, advancements in blockchain technologies and digital assets also present an incredible opportunity for American entrepreneurs, businesses, and our economy. If we don't take the lead in making the United States a hub for digital asset innovation, our global competitors will. Markets thrive the most when they can rely on regulatory fairness and certainty. Regulation by enforcement is not just unfair, it is counterproductive. It also ignores Congress and the legal limits it places on regulatory bodies. As lawmakers continue bipartisan conversations around the market structure frameworks and digital assets more broadly, the SEC and other regulators should work to provide as much clarity to market participants as soon as possible. To that end, the newly created Crypto Task Force at the SEC has provided a forum for regulators, innovators, and market participants to collaborate and provide recommendations on the regulatory framework for the digital asset ecosystem. I'm looking forward to hearing more about the task force progress so far and how we appropriators can support their continued work. Chairman Atkins, thank you for your willingness to serve. Your decades of experience both at the SEC and the private sector make you the right person to lead the SEC at this important time. I look forward to hearing from you about your vision for the SEC and the Commission's budget priorities as we look forward to FY 2026. I now recognize the ranking member, Mr. Hoyer, for his opening statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and welcome, Mr. Atkins, Commissioner Atkins, to the hearing. And thank you very much for taking the time to stop by my office. Subsequent to our conversation, I talked to Gary Gensler, whom you know, and who had high remarks for you. That did not mean, obviously, as you well know, that he agreed with your proposition any more than you agreed with his propositions. But he believes that, I asked him what he thought. His father was a good friend of mine. He's from Maryland. I've known him for a long period of time. So I thank you for being here, and I thank you for, as the chairman did, for agreeing to pursue, even though we may disagree, the fact that you're highly perceived by your colleagues is, I think, important. Today's hearing on the Securities and Exchange Commission comes amid circumstances somewhat reminiscent of the time of the agency's founding. Though not as dire as the Great Depression, there's a significant volatility and lack of confidence in our markets right now. The Trump administration's tariff shocked the stock market and rattled U.S. bonds. The value of the dollar is down around the world. Could be good or get bad in some instances. The past quarter, our economy shrank for the first time since the COVID-19 crisis. In April, consumer sentiment slid to its second lowest reading on record, with Americans rightfully fearing what rising costs from tariffs will mean for their finances and their families. Trump's trade agenda, paired with Republicans' efforts to explode the national debt by passing massive tax cuts for the wealthiest among us, led America to lose its last perfect credit rating just last weekend. There are also growing concerns of market manipulation and insider trading related to Trump's tariff pause announcement when he said it was a good time to buy. It turned out to be a good time to buy, as he announced just hours later he was going to change his trade policy. Today's circumstances may be similar as the SEC's funding, but I fear the agency's response may not be. The SEC ought to address the current mistrust and fraud in our markets by better protecting investors and improving enforcement. I had the opportunity to read your testimony, and I thought it was comprehensive and good. On page 3, you said policy making will be done through notice and comment rulemaking, not through regulation by enforcement. I think I understand what you mean by that, but I also am concerned as to the reduction that we have seen in enforcement monies. I'll ask you questions about that. The SEC, in my view, ought to address the mistrust and fraud in our markets by better protecting investors and improving enforcement, not reducing it. I'm concerned by the reports that the SEC has lost between 15% and 19% of its staff, including large reductions to its legal affairs, investment management, and trading and market divisions because of DOGE purge. Those cuts don't save the taxpayer any money, since SEC is entirely fee-funded. Although, as I understand your testimony, you may clarify that we're now down to 0 per million because the budget is already paid for in the first 5 months. Is that what I read correctly in your statement? These reductions will, however, make it harder for the SEC to enforce laws and regulations that keep our markets fair, orderly, and efficient. An absolutely essential part of your work. Since Trump took office, the SEC has sought to dismiss numerous enforcement actions, including many with direct or indirect implications for Trump's families or his own best financial interests. Chairman Atkins, I understand that many of these changes were put into motion before you started your role a few weeks ago, although you were complimentary of those efforts in your statement. Many Americans share my concern that this overhaul weakens the SEC, by extension, our markets. We need to ensure, as you have said you want to do, and as I believe you do want to do, SEC can do the job it was created to do, to restore confidence in our markets, to go after insider trading and corruption, and to protect American investors. I look forward to working together with you to accomplish those objectives on behalf of the American people and our economy. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Hoyer. Today, we welcome the testimony of the Honorable Paul Atkins, Chairman of the United States Securities and Exchange Commission. Chairman Atkins, without objection, your full written testimony will be entered into the record. With that in mind, we ask you to summarize your opening statement in 5 minutes.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Chairman Joyce, Ranking Member Hoyer, and members of the committee, of the subcommittee. Thank you very much for inviting me to testify today. So this testimony, I have to hasten to say, reflects my individual views as chairman of the commission and do not necessarily reflect the views of the commission or my fellow commissioners. Yeah. I'm grateful for the opportunity to discuss SEC, including our important mission on behalf of our fellow citizens, investors, and taxpayers, and to speak to some of my priorities as chairman. As I testify before you, this is my 20th working day as chairman back at the SEC. So first and foremost, I want to say that it is a new day at the SEC. I'm determined that we return to our core mission that Congress set for us more than 90 years ago. The SEC's three-part mission, as the chairman stated earlier, was enunciated by Congress in the Exchange Act, and that's investor protection, which is vital to our mission, holding accountable those who lie, cheat, and steal. Capital formation is also at the root of what we do, fostering a direct economical route for investors' capital to find its way to entrepreneurs and industry to create products and services. And the third core part of our mission is maintaining fair, orderly, and efficient markets. Congress calls on the Commission to ensure that our regulations balance costs and benefits, that they do not become too burdensome by adding needless friction to the marketplace, thereby undermining the capital formation that yields so much benefit. My time in public service and in the private sector has allowed me to see firsthand how regulations affect markets and investors. They can stoke innovation, facilitate investment goals, and create opportunities or burdens on businesses' ability to compete and to serve their customers. How we implement regulations at the SEC is crucial. It's one thing to write a regulation, quite another for it to achieve its intended goal. Regulation should be smart, effective, and appropriately tailored within the confines of our statutory authority. A key priority of my chairmanship will be to develop a rational regulatory framework for crypto asset markets that establishes clear rules of the road for the issuance, custody, and trading of crypto assets while continuing to discourage bad actors from violating the law. Clear rules of the road are necessary for investor protection against fraud. Policymaking will be done through notice and comment rulemaking, not through regulation by enforcement. The Commission will utilize its existing authorities to set fit-for-purpose standards for market participants. The Commission's enforcement approach will return to Congress's original intent, which is to police violations of these established obligations, particularly as they relate to fraud and manipulation. The SEC is returning rulemaking to regular order. Our comment periods will not be artificially short, and the public will have ample time to provide feedback. The SEC will also be sure to take into consideration how rules overlap and how regulatory burdens build, in keeping with our obligation to consider their costs and their benefits. There will be targeted, common-sense reorganizations to come at the SEC. To start, I'm seeking approval from Congress to disband what's known as FinHub. Its innovation should be ingrained into the culture SEC-wide and not limited to a relatively small office. We've begun a process to review our technology infrastructure and our contractual obligations. So to close, we will work with our colleagues in the administration, especially other financial services regulators, and with Congress to bolster the economy and build on U.S. leadership of the global markets. This SEC will take every effort to ensure that the United States is the best and the most secure place in the world to invest and do business. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Chairman Atkins. I now recognize myself for questions. Chairman Atkins, for the past several years, the SEC has prioritized a more partisan rulemaking agenda rather than fulfilling the Commission's primary mission. Are there any rules that former Chair Gensler proposed or finalized that you are focused on rescinding? And are there any rules that Congress should defund?
Well, thank you, Chairman Joyce. Well, I've, again, been at the SEC now, this is my 20th day, so it's been like drinking from a fire hose to get up to speed. So, we're reviewing what went on. Obviously, things happened before I was there, between inauguration and then the 21st of April when I got to the SEC. So, I'm reviewing what's going on, and then obviously we'll be talking to my colleagues about, and the staff about, working forward on that.
Not trying to put you on the spot, sir. I appreciate the fact. Do you intend to take a different approach to rulemaking than your predecessor did, and how so?
Well, as I mentioned, I do think that the notice and comment process called for by the Administrative Procedure Act is really essential. That is a way for a regulator to make informed decisions, and even getting feedback from other agencies of the government to make sure that we're not traipsing, beyond our remit and affecting what other agencies and departments are trying to do. So that's a vital aspect of it, and that I take seriously. And so we will definitely work towards that. And then with respect to regulation through enforcement, I think that's one thing that we need to have clear rules, and to try to do it in kind of a scattershot way is not the way to be done, I think.
You said that one of your top priorities is develop a rational regulatory framework for crypto asset markets that establishes clear rules of the road. What does a regulatory framework look like to you, and what type of clarity is needed for market participants?
Well, that's a very good question, and I could answer that, take a long time to do it, but let's suffice it to say
I hold myself to the same rules, so you've got 2 minutes and 40
Yes,
seconds.
sir, okay, yes. Well, suffice it to say that, I think the problem is right now that there's a lot of uncertainty in the marketplace as to what's a security, what's not. And so that affects innovation. And so it goes beyond crypto assets. It goes to the blockchain and the potential ramifications for efficiency and safety in the marketplaces that blockchain distributed ledger technology can do. But if lawyers cannot even write opinions for their clients as to what's a security and what's not, which is the situation right now. That just inhibits everything because capital doesn't flow to where it might be needed and be soundly fostered for capital formation in new products. It just inhibits everything. So that's what I mean by trying to get a rational framework. I think we have the authority at the SEC under the various Securities Acts, and I intend to work with Congress and with my colleagues in that vein. Thank you.
What tools do the SEC currently have to develop a regulatory framework for digital assets, and what additional resources do you believe might be needed from this committee?
Well, we have the biggest tool. We have a lot of good, smart folks at the SEC and many of the offices and divisions, and so that's we'll definitely use that number one resource. We'll also be through roundtables and as I mentioned, as we do concept releases and proposals, we'll be taking in comments from those outside of the SEC. So those are the main tools: the Exchange Act and the Securities Act. And the 240 Acts give us a pretty broad exemptive authority and authority within the public interest to make changes to our forms and to accommodate this new technology, which the SEC has done in the past, not for crypto, but for other aspects.
Thank you, sir. The chair now recognizes the ranking member, Mr. Hoyer, for any questions he may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Let me return to what there's been some discussion here. I am very concerned about the fact that we are reducing enforcement in many agencies, in yours and particularly in the IRS, where, in my opinion, enforcement is being devastated. We know, as human beings, that if we don't think there's a cop on the beat, we may go 55 miles an hour rather than 50 miles an hour. That's human nature. We all experience it. So I'm very concerned about the fact that the reductions in personnel at your agency prior to your beginning this iteration of your career there were pretty substantial. Most of the reductions were in your enforcement areas. Am I correct that since you left the first time when you said there were 3,600 folks there in the FTEs, and I forget how many, I think 2,000 on the contract side, very substantial increase in your workload?
Well, so I should first of all say that in our enforcement division, the headcount's down 15%, and that is not as high as, for example, in the general counsel's office or investment management or in trading and markets. So the enforcement division is at the average of the overall decrease in headcount.
Can I ask you a question as you answer that? Were those DOGE inspired or internally? In other words, did the SEC or commissioners make that determination, or did DOGE implement those reductions?
No, actually the employees themselves made it, because these are all voluntary retirements, and some people took the buyouts and whatnot. And a number of my friends, that I've known for years, were the ones who took some of these retirements, and obviously will miss their expertise and their participation. But some of them wanted to move away. Some of them decided that now's the time to retire because they live farther or wanted whatever the decisions might be. So I think all that's good, but
because our time is limited, let me follow up on that question. So these were made by the employees themselves, not a management decision as to what was needed and what was not.
Exactly. These are all voluntary.
That concerns me because, of course, 2 million people were sent the opportunity to retire. 2 million, all of our people. Had they all walked off, government would have stopped, and the American people would have noticed it within 24 hours. So I'm very concerned about the fact that these opportunities were given, in my view, without a rationale articulated, at least, that I've been able to see, of why X, Y, and Z employees were no longer needed to accomplish the objectives Congress had set forth. Would that be an accurate observation?
No, actually, I look at it another way. I mean, these are free people who are deciding that they want to retire, and that leaves room for, we have a lot of very competent people who are younger, and as they, this gives them room to grow, and so part of what I would like to accomplish is to help break down silos at the SEC, because too often young people come in full of vim and vigor, but then are kind of stopped in their progress as professionals to develop and to move around the agency. So I view this as a normal thing. There are 600 and some odd people who left out of, so that's the 15%. So I think, we miss, obviously, their expertise, but I think that we have plenty of good expertise there at the commission, and I intend to tap into that.
Okay, let me go back to my question. Has your workload increased since you left?
Well, so I don't know the precise answer to that, but we're getting the job done. The requests that I've been making to the staff have been answered with alacrity, and so I feel confident that we're able to handle it. So, I definitely, I share your concern to make sure that, we fill the spots that are needed. But I think it's good to every once in a while have a house cleaning and to have a reorganization and to look at what's going on.
My last 9 seconds. Prior to rules, do you have to discuss them with either the Secretary or the administration?
Prior to
your issuing rules or enforcement actions or some actions, do you have to check with the Secretary of the Treasury or the White House?
No, we file with OIRA, which is part of Office of Management and Budget, and that's SEC has done that in the past, and so that's part of the process.
Thank you.
Thank you. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Polkan, for 5 minutes for questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Atkins, for being here. Let me just do one follow-up from what Steny asked. I just want to make sure I understand. So there were no staff reductions at all by firings. There only were by people leaving early out of the SEC?
From what I understand, this is all voluntary retirements that people took through various programs, deferred resignation and those sorts of things.
Okay. I just wanted a clarification from myself more than anything. So I appreciated how you talked about one of the three priorities is investor protection, going after those who lie, cheat, and steal. I think that's really important for the market so people have confidence in it. One of the concerns I have is that, since COVID, the market has been doing really well until very recently with some of the talk about tariffs being on again and off again, on again, off again. The market's had some real volatility, particularly on April 9th when at 9:37 in the morning, the president put out on his social media, "This is a great time to buy," and initialed it, so the minute came from him. And then later that day, the announcement of tariff pauses came about 4 hours later at 1:18. Since then, there was just today, Secretary Duffy supposedly that morning traded in 34 companies, including companies affected by tariffs like John Deere and Shopify. Attorney General Bondi also did some trading that morning, Marjorie Taylor Greene. And those are just the ones we know of right now. So clearly, this would be of concern if someone had a huge signal releasing information, public information ahead of time about something that could affect stock trades. So I guess my question is specifically, what are you doing to look into this particular incident that happened, where the signal sort of was given, and how are you looking to see who might have unfairly taken advantage of this? I know there was another trader, too, who 10 minutes before the post put out a massive call option and stood to benefit greatly on this. So this is the kind of manipulation of the market, I think, that hurts the confidence that you're trying to restore to the market. So what specifically are you doing around this?
Well, Congressman, I can't really talk about any, investigations, current or potential or past. Because
how about just philosophically? If someone did what happened, philosophically, is this market manipulation?
Well, around that particular incident, I obviously can't speak to it, but in general, the rules around trading and whatnot have to do with material non-public information and a duty, and so all of those elements need to be met.
So would material non-public information, because I'm one of the people who thinks members of Congress shouldn't be able to trade stock, because I think we get a lot of inside information. So for that material non-public information, if someone indicates something prior to something significant happening that's going to affect the market, would that be in the category of manipulation in your philosophical sense?
Yeah, I think it all depends on the facts, and I think if you once it's public, it's it's open to everybody to obviously see the facts. So once an announcement's made, so I think it all depends on the circumstances and.
So philosophically, if I know a company in my district is about to get approved by CMS for Medicare, that means their stock's likely going to go up. If I put that information up before anything was announced, would that be, in your philosophical view, market manipulation?
Yeah, it just depends. I mean, I think it's, if the person isn't trading himself, I don't really see that as manipulation. I think it just depends on what the circumstances are.
My husband and my brother and my neighbors all then traded at that point, not me, would that be market manipulation potentially under your philosophical viewpoint?
Well, the problem with this whole area is that it's all very, very circumstantial, built on circumstantial evidence. So, but I share concern about any kind of untoward activity in the marketplace that goes against the law and SEC rules, and so I assure you that we will
But just generally, in the 23 seconds I have left, do you think my example I just gave, would that be worthy of looking closer at?
We have a lot of smart people and very ambitious people in our enforcement division who read the papers and look at things, and they are quick to go to plant their flag to launch investigations. So, I have confidence in our guys being able to do more than that.
Okay. I'll yield back. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Ivey, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, Mr. Chairman, and welcome. Just to follow up on Mr. Pocan's last question, so in this hypothetical, this would be something that would be, if it were to be investigated, would be investigated by the Enforcement Division?
This meaning?
The insider trading scenarios you guys just walked through.
Yeah, and usually someone, enforcement lawyers would identify something potential that they would pick up from a tip. We have a very robust tip line that comes in. We have whistleblowers, that and all of that. So
got a separate line for you, and this involves Justin Sun, who is had a case. The SEC brought charges against him in March of 2023. The charges were fraud and other securities law violations. The case moved forward and was continuing to move forward. President Trump was elected in November of 2024. And as you may know, the Trump family has begun meme coin investments of some kind. The WLFI coin in particular, Mr. Sun bought $30 million in that coin on November 25th, 2024. On January 17th, 2025, Mr. Trump posts a tweet and launches the Trump coin. That's the $ with Trump after it, all in quotes or caps. Then in January 19, Sun bought another $45 million of the WLFI coin. And just so we're clear, the WLFI piece is sort of, I guess, the umbrella group, and he's got these other meme coins underneath it, Trump, Melania, and the like. January 20th, which is Inauguration Day, after he's sworn in and after he does the parade, he then does a tweet retweeting the January 17th post that launches the Trump coin. And on February 26th, the FEC filed a stay. It's a joint stay motion. It was joint between the plaintiffs and the defendants. But SEC joined in this to stay the cases against Mr. Sun's businesses. You assumed office after all of this happened, so that's April 21st. April 23rd, Mr. Trump announces a dinner for top investors in the Trump coin. And then WLF on May 1 announces a new coin, USDI-1, which the Trump family also benefits from. And this is being used by an Abu Dhabi investment firm for its $2 billion investment in crypto exchange with Binance. I'll skip ahead, I'm running out of time. May 20th, Mr. Sun tweets that he's the top holder in the Trump coin. So in the bidding process, he ends up coming out on top. And this, I guess it's this morning, he announced this on Twitter. And then the dinner that they're going to have for the highest bidders is 2 days from now. So from my perspective, you know, these are concerning things. I didn't really get to the $320 million in trading fees that the Trump family has accrued since he launched these meme coins in January. Along the lines of what Mr. Pocan was asking, because this, frankly, to me, smells very bad. And my hope would be that the SEC would be investigating that piece. But it's especially problematic here because it's intertwined, apparently, at least chronologically, with the decision that the SEC made jointly with the defendants to pause that civil case. So I was wondering if you could share any information with us about the status of that decision and where things are going from your perspective with respect to the SEC.
Okay, well, thank you, Congressman. Well, first of all, I don't know anything about that case, so I can't speak to it, and obviously it's an active case anyway. But as far as you know, the more general proposition of these meme coins and whatnot, they are collectibles. Before I got to the SEC, the staff of Corporation Finance came out with guidance and basically saying that meme coins are collectibles and not securities. So,
well, 2 quick points. One is you've got a letter pending from Senator Warren and Representative Waters. This was sent to your predecessor, the acting chair, but it goes to these issues. And it's got information it requests for you all to respond to that would address these issues. So if you're not aware of the issues, I hope you'll take a look and send a response. There's another letter that goes to the insider trading piece that Mr. Pocan was referencing. That's dated April 10th, and it goes directly to you. So I appreciate the chair, but I would ask that these letters be made part of the record, and we look forward to hearing from you in response to both of those letters.
yes, sir, thank you.
Without objection, the chair now recognizes the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Bishop, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Welcome, Chairman Atkins. Investor advocacy legal clinics assist predominantly elderly investors who've been wronged by their broker or their advisor, often involving their retirement savings. And those clinics also provide investor education and fraud awareness by meeting with investors in our local communities to advance financial literacy and ensure that the investors understand what their rights are. Unfortunately, today there are only 10 investor protection clinics across the country, and most of them are concentrated in the New York area. That's down from 24 clinics that were operating a decade ago. I understand this is because the funds that subsidize those clinics, for example, from FINRA and state regulators, have been exhausted. What can the SEC do to prevent or discourage the closure of additional clinics, and how are you promoting these and other resources to at-risk populations?
Well, thank you, Mr. Congressman. That's very interesting in that it's down the road of what I really want to achieve while I'm chairman. Back in the mid-'90s, I was a counselor to Arthur Levitt, who was chairman of the SEC, and so he had me set up what we call the Consumer Advisory Committee, Consumer Investor Advisory Committee, I believe it was called. And then Arthur went out on the road to do town halls around the country for senior citizens and elsewhere. So I intend to rejuvenate that effort. I didn't realize that data that you just talked about, but I do intend to focus on senior fraud, on military folks. When I was a commissioner, I went around the country as well to military bases and to universities and old folks' homes and things like that to talk to people about these issues. So I think Arthur Levitt had a great idea that he set up back then. It's kind of fallen away over the years, but I intend to rejuvenate that, and I'll look into these clinics that you've mentioned.
With reductions in staff, that's going to make it a little bit challenging for you. So I was wondering how you were going to navigate that challenges.
Well, I'll definitely look at that. And obviously, you mentioned FINRA and other industry groups. I know SIFMA, the Securities Industry and Financial Markets Association, also sponsors things for schools, the stock market game and things like that, to try to teach about investing and savings. So those are all issues that I think are very good. We have an investor advisory committee at the SEC, plus also an investor education committee headed by Lori Schock, whom I've known for decades. So I, look forward to working with them on that.
Thank you. I've watched with interest, Mr. Chairman, the evolving landscape of cryptocurrency. I understand that you're interested in loosening the restrictions on crypto and the exchanges through the rulemaking process. What do you see as SEC's role in regulating cryptocurrency, and what aspects of cryptocurrency do you think are the most important to address to cut down on the prevalence of fraud, and what are effectively useless and valueless coins?
Well, I share your concern about fraud in any market, but we have a lot of fraud in the traditional financial markets as well. And I think in many respects, on the digital asset side and the blockchain side, there's more transparency, frankly, than, for example, over cash and other sorts of things. So that's one important thing. Innovation is another that we need to foster. But the real rub right now is that there really are no rules that are tailored for this this part of the market, which has grown and burgeoned. And if we don't have firm rules, that invites fraud because investors can't tell the wheat from the chaff as things go. So what I think we have to have is firm rules that give people direction and lanes to stay in, and outlines our jurisdiction as well, and that then we can take action against fraudsters and others who are trying to scam people. So I share that concern, and I want to address it.
Thank you. My time has expired.
Thank you, sir. The chair now recognizes the gentlewoman from Washington, Ms. Glusenkamp Perez.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Chairman Atkins, for being here today. Just following up on what my colleague, Mr. Ivey, was saying. So I heard you say that meme coins are essentially collectibles. So would you say it's the opinion of the SEC that these meme coins are equivalent to like Beanie Babies?
That's essentially what the corporation finance staff came out with in their guidance back in, I believe, January. So, collectibles come in all sorts of things. I mean, meme coins are not aimed at being sort of like Bitcoin or something like that. And so people collect all sorts of things, and it's a new, obviously collectible type of genre, but it's it doesn't have the attributes of the securities as our staff has outlined. So that's one thing that want to explore as we go forward, with respect to trying to carve out, clear, as I talked about, clear rules of the road that will help guide this and govern this digital asset space. And working with the CFTC, for example, where they might have jurisdiction over digital assets that are commodities and not securities. So it's this whole welter of potential rules and uncertainty out there between what people, as they try to parse Supreme Court rulings, so like the 80-year-old Howey test and others that are not really tailored to the 21st century. And so we need to, I think that's what we can do at the SEC to provide certainty.
Thank you. Interesting and perhaps troubling. I wanted to ask you about another issue that is close to home for us. I represent Southwest Washington in Congress, a lot of timberland. Most of my family has worked in timber, loggers, fellers. And we're seeing a shift in the way that property is being held from local families towards real estate investment trusts. And often with that shift, we're losing public access, places, watering hole, like we used to go to, places to recreate. We're losing that. And I wanted to ask, could you tell me about what kind of information this publicly traded timber REITs should disclose to the SEC and how that information helps your commission determine whether this is a fair and orderly process?
That's a great question, and so I have to say I'll have to look into that. I'm not a former REIT lawyer or whatnot, so that area is not part of my expertise. But I know there are a lot of people at the SEC who have obviously focused on REITs, and we've had over the past 3 decades rules that have come out to focus on those sorts of asset-backed securities that are listed. So happy to look into that and discuss further and put you into contact with our staff.
Do you have a perspective as to whether or not people who are considering buying shares of REIT should have information regarding foreign ownership of that land, farmland, timberland, whatever it is?
I'd have to really look into what's already required, and then but it's all those sorts of things. I can put you in touch with people who know about that.
Okay, thank you so much. I yield back.
Thank you very much. Second round of questions. Mm-hmm. It's unfair, me fighting all of you. I'll give it my best shot. Chairman Atkins, the Crypto Task Force was created earlier this year to provide regulatory clarity and develop potential frameworks to regulate digital assets. Would you describe the task force work up to date and the lessons learned, if any? Is the task force working with the CFTC? And if not, do you anticipate them working with them in the future?
Oh, well, thank you for that question. After inauguration, Acting Chairman Ueda named Commissioner Peirce to be head of that crypto task force. I think she's, super qualified to do that, and so she's formed a team, and they have gone after this to explore and prepare for potential rulemaking in this area, and so they've done a lot of work. I'm not completely familiar with it just now, but
20 days worth.
Yeah, right, 20 days worth, but have been seeing their handiwork that they've produced, and I think they're a group of smart people, and I think it's very valuable what they're doing, and so I look forward to working with the task force for the roundtables that they've done so far. I think that's produced a lot of good testimony from people outside of the building. We definitely will work with the CFTC, and I'm looking forward to Brian Quintenz's becoming chairman if the Senate confirms him. And so I think he's very qualified for the job, and I've known him for a while. So I think we can work really well together. And so it's good to have the SEC and the CFTC kind of working cheek to jowl with respect to these issues so that nothing falls through the cracks as far as whatever the framework that we come up with to make sure that spot market is looked at and the security side and commodity side.
Cheek to jowl, that's a new one for me. Do you plan to create a new division or office within the SEC dedicated specifically to digital assets?
Well, at this time, no. I think that digital assets are another part of the financial marketplace, and so they should fit in, with the current divisions that we have, and that's one reason when I mentioned about FinHub, the focus on innovation and new technologies should be dispersed throughout the agency, so every part of the agency is focused on things. The agency is organized pretty much by statute now, which is a bit antiquated because in the old days, brokers were brokers and investment advisors were investment advisors and whatnot. Now there's a lot of fluidity between that, just the way the market has evolved. So when the questions come up about potential reorganization, who knows? But I think I look forward to working with my colleagues. I want to optimize the efficiency and the focus of the agency so we can catch criminals and deal with them and make referrals to the Department of Justice where necessary and to the states, and then to have good, efficient rules that provide people certainty about how they can run their business and develop new products.
In preparation for today, have you given any thought to what resources would be required to fund the crypto task force for 2026?
Not in specifics. So we still the 2026 budget is under study and development, I guess, at the administration, and so looking forward to working with them and discussing with them what our needs are.
It's tough to fund what we don't know, so we just want to make sure that we give you the adequate resources so you can properly do your job, sir. Chair now recognizes the ranking member for his round of questions.
Now I'm on. I may be off, but on. Mr. Chairman, let me say something kindly. You've indicated you've only been there 20 days. Rarely has somebody gone on the SEC with the kind of experience and inside information about how the SEC works than yourself, with all due respect. You're not a new person on the block to this agency. I want to go to one of the chairman's questions. You're organized by statute. Do you believe you can effect a reorganization on your own, and would you have to come to Congress to do that?
Well, we're, for example, with FinHub, we're coming to Congress to ask for reprogramming of our allocations and our budget. So it depends. I have to learn the ins and outs of the budget process as a commissioner. The budget process is vested in the chairman, and so I really didn't have any insight to that. And the budget experience I have goes all the way back to the early 90s, so I'm sure that things have changed here. And so with respect to the SEC, the 15 years that, since I was last there, Dodd-Frank came out, and so huge amounts of processes within the walls of the SEC have changed. The whistleblower system, is very robust, and so that's completely new to me. So there are a lot of aspects to the job that is just fascinating, and I'm having fun diving into it. But
well, I
really
appreciate
look forward
your
to it.
recognizing that the Congress of the United States has the authority under Article 1 to set up agencies, approve their reorganizations, and either by rescission, any cuts that might be made to the budget that is passed by the Congress. The budget is, after all, not an advisory instrument. It is a mandatory instrument for the agency. So while you were in my office, and I thank you again for visiting with my office, you mentioned you're conducting a staffing review. I asked you something about staffing at the beginning. What levels of staffing the SEC needs to do in its missions? As I implied in my question, I don't think DOJ had any idea what you needed. I think they had an idea they wanted to produce X numbers from the federal government, just as Musk wanted to cut $2 trillion, which of course he didn't. And I understand from my colleague that he has now decided he's going to return to the private sector and not even contribute money to campaigns anymore. I think he's been burned by what he did, but I don't want the American people burned by what he did. So how long do you think it will take for you to do the study as to what is needed to accomplish your current objectives?
Well, we're working on it, starting, and so I don't have any idea, but I think here in the next few months, as the budget process rolls out, we will be prepared to do it. I think from what I understand from our major divisions, that they have the people necessary to do what to accomplish what they need to do, and so. But I intend to look into that.
Mr. Atkins, I think I recall in reading your testimony that you indicated part of that is to decide whether or not people were let go whose services you needed, and either to hire them back or to hire somebody to do those services. Is that accurate?
Or promote people from within, because there's a lot of good people at the SEC, and for them to be promoted and to be recognized for their expertise, I think is great. It's a great way of rejuvenating an agency. So I think it's positive.
In your study, I would appreciate it if you include whether or not people were removed who, in retrospect, should not have been removed because their services were critically important. And when you say, with all due respect, Mr. Chairman, I don't think much of this was voluntary. I have 77,000 federal employees who work for the federal government who live in my district, the largest in the country. The overwhelming majority of them thought they had no options. They were either going to take the VERA, they were going to get riffed, or they were going to get fired. And that kind of alternative, to perceive that as voluntary, I think, frankly, is somewhat Pollyannish, with all due respect. And I think your employees and the employees of the federal government have been treated very, very poorly, very inhumanely, causing great trauma, which, by the way, Mr. Vogt said he wanted to do. He is quoted as saying, I want to, Mr. Chairman, if you just give me a little leeway.
We had a second round of 5 minutes. And, this isn't a question. This is sort of a lecture on a poor man who's been there for 20 years, with all due respect to my dear friend.
Continuing for just a minute, I hope you will bring to leadership as chairman a sensitivity which Mr. Musk and his minions did not bring to their role. They fired people to get numbers, not to get efficiency.
Well, thank you, Mr. Ranking Member. I share your concern about the motivations and the staff working, all the value that they do add. We can't run the place without them. And so among the 600 people who left the SEC, as I mentioned, I know, many of them, and not a huge percentage, obviously, but the ones I know took a voluntary. They didn't feel coerced into doing it. But anyway, I'm sure there are other tales as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Pocan, for any questions he may have.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
For 5 minutes.
So I just want to do a clarification because I think I'm a little confused. So none of the positions at SEC were let go. They all were voluntary by taking early retirement. Is that correct?
That's what I understand.
Do you want to look behind you and check? Because I know you said you're only there 20 days.
Yeah.
Okay,
All
just
right.
verifying. Okay.
Yeah.
Did Doge meet with your agency at all?
Well, I've met with a couple of people,
Okay.
not over the phone and in person. They're focused on investment technology, and so they've been looking at our contracts. As I mentioned at the outset, we had like 2,000 contractors on top of 5,100 at the end of last year. And so, I would have had to hire contractors to look at what contractors are doing to make sure that's what they're doing. So through this process, we've been able to rationalize some of the contracting so far to the tune of $90 million. So I think that's not chicken feed, and I think that's really valuable to have a look like that.
Well, the good news is you don't got to hire people back that got fired, right? That's like looking at the silver lining, right? With DOJ not coming in and directly firing people, you don't have to worry about bringing people back like almost every other agency. So that's good, right? Clarification also, you said you couldn't talk directly about this tweet that said this is a great time to buy. Does that mean there is currently an investigation going on?
No, I have no clue, actually, if there is or is not. I mean, but...
There's not an investigation.
Well, I don't know, and I couldn't really
You want
say.
to turn around and ask? Because I know 20 days, I'm not trying to hold you to anything. Is there an investigation going on right now?
You know, I cannot confirm or deny. I mean, under the rules of FOIA and the Exchange Act and all of that. So as I said, there are a lot of very smart and ambitious folks in the enforcement.
How would one
division.
get initiated if there is or is not one? How would one get initiated again, just so I understand that process?
Well, there's a process of where it's an automated process, at least it was back 15 years ago, and I understand it's still basically the same way, where somebody can enter what's called a matter under investigation to initiate that, and then
Somebody on staff.
Somebody on the staff or in the regions, headquarters in the regions, and then then that starts the process of putting people on that particular investigation and seeing if there's anything that is worthwhile looking at. If it develops more, then they could come to the commission to ask for a formal order of investigation, for subpoenas, and all of that.
All right, thank you. Just one last question. This is more your philosophy again. You've previously been opposed at the SEC to increasing penalties on large corporations. You even co-authored a law article with the Attorney General's brother, Brad Bondi, saying that these penalties don't deter wrongdoing and suggested that individuals should be held responsible. I'm intrigued by that, what that means exactly. Are you suggesting that rather than lobbying hefty fines at corporations who lie, cheat, or steal, that you would go directly after individual members of corporations and prosecute them criminally, or what is your philosophy on this?
Well, first I'd refer you to, there was a bipartisan, unanimous statement by the commission back in 2006 when I was a commissioner regarding corporate penalties. Basically, what we were looking at is oftentimes penalties that are assessed against corporations are because of issues that basically harmed the shareholders themselves. So whether that resulted in, say, financial fraud or something like that of the company. And so it seems unfair to impose a penalty on the very shareholders who of the company who were ripped off. Other times where a company has and the shareholders have gained because of some financial misdeeds of the company, then it would be, I think, fine and good to then fine the company itself because the shareholders and the company have benefited from that.
Would you look at going after individuals at the corporations?
And that's part of it, yes.
Okay,
So especially where the shareholders have been harmed by corporate insiders who have either lined their own pockets or whatever, that's absolutely where we need to look at remedies against individuals.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Chair now recognizes the gentlewoman from Iowa, Ms. Hinson, for any questions she may have for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member, for holding this hearing today. And Chairman Atkins, thank you so much for appearing before our committee today. We know your predecessor, Chairman Gensler, really weaponized the position he was in to go after Iowa farmers, businesses, and workers by pushing a climate agenda that I think reached far beyond the jurisdiction of the Commission and the SEC. Just one example of rogue actions under the previous administration. And so in March of this year, I was very pleased to see the Commission vote to stop defending that controversial climate disclosure rule. So thank you for helping to protect hardworking Americans against an egregious and outrageous rule. What is the status of the rule now, and what does the Commission plan to do in terms of formally rescinding that rule?
So thank you for the question, Congresswoman. That rule was adopted, I think, March of last year by the commission, and so, but then quickly there were lawsuits filed in various jurisdictions, and so the commission at the time basically put it on ice voluntarily. So that's the status of it now. There's still the lawsuits are being consolidated in the Eighth Circuit, based in St. Louis, and so we're actively studying, what to do with respect to the rule. The Eighth Circuit posed some questions to us, and we need to answer those here in the coming weeks. And so that's actively working with my colleagues and the staff to figure out the next steps.
Yeah. Well, I distinctly remember my line of questioning in this hearing room last time, and I asked Chairman Gensler if he could find anywhere in the code where the authorization existed at the SEC to go in this direction, and he could not defend that. And I think that that's probably what the outcome will be. And again, it's about reversing regulations and overburdensome rules. And the U.S. Chamber actually came out in January and made clear the urgent need to roll back the worst of the regulatory onslaught from the past 4 years. This is about creating an environment for our small businesses and our workers to actually be able to thrive. And I agree. So what is your status of review of burdensome and unnecessary regulations at the SEC, and what does that process look like?
Well, the thing about burdensome and unnecessary regulations is that it raises costs for everybody, and it inhibits innovation in the marketplace because of the uncertainty of those rules, and especially if they, if they create impediments that don't necessarily balance the costs and benefits, for those rules. So that's part of the essential part of rulemaking, and then reviewing rules to make sure that with changes in technology and in the marketplace that we stay up to speed as far as making sure that the rules are fit for purpose, and then to pare back or to add depending on what's needed.
Yeah. The FTC, we had a commissioner in last week, and they have a portal online to take feedback and kind of tips on what could be rolled back or maybe seen as anti-competitive. Are you anticipating doing something similar where people can flag for you rules that you can review?
Yeah, in fact, I was just talking about that yesterday, that was probably a good idea. We will enter into roundtables, like on the crypto side. We've done that and have, I think, one or two more left to do that the task force is planning. But more generally, to have like a suggestion box, let's say, is not a bad idea for to address anomalies that the staff of the SEC, not being active practitioners outside, may not be aware of. So it's important.
Well, I certainly bet some of my constituents have some strong feedback as to some of those ideas, and we could probably get that list started for you. What would you say are your top 3 goals with deregulating at the SEC?
Well, I don't know about deregulating, but maybe just focusing on what the real issues are where, again, there are impediments that are thrown up. The securities laws have been around now 90 some years. And so, everything needs to be looked at in the spring cleaning, if you will, because things build up over time and people don't have time to address, things that might have become problematic. So I do think that it's incumbent on us to make sure that we are as efficient as possible and that we have well-tailored rules that are not creating, workarounds or things where people can take advantage of the rules.
Certainly. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you very much. Chair now recognizes the gentleman from.
You can let the people who haven't had a chance.
So you're waiving your time?
I would like to have it, but I know they haven't had a chance to go first. It's a good try.
Chair now recognizes the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Edwards, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Atkins, thanks for being with us this afternoon. In the fiscal year 2025, the Securities and Exchange salaries and expenses account was appropriated $2.2 let's call it $1 billion. And in your written testimony, you stated at your height a year ago, you had approximately 5,000 employees plus 2,000 contractors. And that today you're at approximately 4,200 employees and 1,700 contractors. That's a reduction of about 15%. Do you expect that the SEC's fiscal year 2026 request for salaries and expenses will be lower than that $2.1 billion?
Well, thank you very much, Congressman, for that question. The process, I was saying earlier that the budget process is new to me, and so we'll be working with the, assessing internally what we need, and working with, with you all in Congress and the administration to right size, what we need, and that may be more. There are a number of things that are in the offing with respect to for example, the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board, whatever may happen there. But so it's a lot of things are, I think, left up in the air. So I can't really speak to the 26 budget.
When do you think we'll know the detail of that request?
Well, I don't know exactly the process just yet, but as we work through it, I assume this summer. Or I'm not sure what the timing is.
How many SEC employees chose to partake in the Trump administration's deferred resignation, voluntary early retirement, or voluntary separation incentive payment programs?
Well, we had about 600 some odd people that took part in those voluntary retirements, and so it's about 15% of the head count.
So the reduction that you saw was a result of the voluntary separations, is what I'm hearing you say.
Yes, sir.
Was there a common denominator in the folks that chose to take that voluntary separation?
I don't know about that. I'm not sure that we've gone to that detail, or I haven't seen it. But people retire for all sorts of reasons, and some of the people who have retired I know, and so some are living away from the Washington area and want to continue to do that. Other people felt that, we've the longevity at the SEC is up there. I mean, the retention by this agency is higher than most, and so the way I look at a lot of this is people want to retire, and that provides a lot of opportunity for younger folks to then move up in the ranks and get more experience and cut their teeth that way.
Do you expect to look a bit deeper into that to find what the common denominators were? For example, you mentioned people that might live away from D.C., folks that were approaching retirement anyway, folks that have been under a performance improvement program. Is that worthy to look at to see where the separations are coming from?
Oh, I think so, but I would think you'd have to do a survey or something, obviously. Or
that was my question. Are you intending to look into those separations with that level of depth?
Well, I think that'd be interesting, and to do a sounding on that, and because we do surveys of employees annually, whether it's done by us or other private sector folks who rank the various agencies as to employee morale and whatnot.
Final question in this round: what percentage of SEC office space is being utilized now that was not being utilized under the maximum telework period under the Biden administration?
So I don't have that figure. I can get back to you on that one. I know that we're back to work in general, which is good to have people in the building. I'm not sure what it was like beforehand. Obviously, it must have been very lonely there within that massive building. But anyway, so I'm glad to have people back, but I can get back to you on the space usage.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Mr. Ivey's still feeling generous, so we'll now recognize the gentleman from Missouri, Mr. Alford, for any questions he has.
Thank you, Chair, Ranking Member, and thank you, Mr. Ivey. Appreciate that. Thank you, Chairman Atkins, for being here today. This disastrous SEC climate disclosure rule propagated by former Chair Gensler would have required public companies to disclose climate-related information in registration statements and annual reports. The initial rule would have required companies to not only disclose their direct and indirect emissions from purchased energy, but also all indirect emissions occurring throughout an organization's value chain, also known as Scope 3 emissions. This reckless rule falls far outside the boundaries of the Commission's statutory authority. The SEC is a market regulator, as you know, not a climate regulator. So, Chair Atkins, the SEC has recently stated it's ending defense of the rule. If you are no longer defending this rule in court, would you consider fully repealing it? Why or why not?
Well, thank you, Congressman. Well, I think, everything is, under review in that respect. And the Eighth Circuit, where there is these various lawsuits have been consolidated, has posed some questions to us, with respect to what our plans are. So we will be coming out. I'm actively talking to the staff and to my colleagues about, the way forward. And one thing I do want to hasten to add is that, the climate rule that was promulgated by the SEC last year is just one thing that affects American companies. You should just do not lose sight of the fact that in Europe, there is the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive and other aspects that will affect, it has extraterritorial effect that will affect American companies, and that's hotly under debate in Europe right now, and I'm concerned about that as well. So please keep that on your radar. But just yesterday, I think Friedrich Merz in Germany came out with, some statements about the dangers of that CSDDD.
But in general, do you support the SEC climate disclosure rule?
No, I've been, before I got there, I've been publicly critical of it.
Yeah.
I share your concern about everything that you and Congresswoman Hinson were talking about.
The House Financial Services Committee's portion of the One Big Beautiful Bill contains a provision that would transfer the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board's authority directly to the SEC. This follows the Biden administration's blatant politicalization of the PCAOB by voting along partisan lines to remove former Chair Dunkey and filling all 5 board seats with hand-picked Democrat cronies. How would moving the PCAOB directly into the SEC make them more accountable to us in Congress and prevent future politicization of the board's authority?
Well, thank you, Congressman. Obviously, that is up to you all in Congress to decide what to do with the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board. It's a creature of Dodd-Frank, and so I, will obviously accommodate whatever you all decide. As I mentioned earlier, I think, we are fully capable of taking on those duties that the PCAOB does, and obviously we would need resources to do that. But we'll be looking obviously at all of this as time goes on this year.
Consolidated audit trail or CAS requirements for brokers to submit investors' personally identifiable information is pretty concerning. We all know our federal financial regulators' abysmal record of protecting American sensitive information. Last year, a rogue CFPB employee made an unauthorized transfer of sensitive records. Will you commit to reviewing whether continued investment in the CAT is justified given what's been going on?
Absolutely. I share your concern on those various points, and so we will review where we stand with consolidated audit trail, its costs, and vulnerabilities.
Well, thank you, Chair, for being here, and I yield back.
Thank you, sir. And with that, we're out of time. Just kidding, Mr. Ivey. Calm down. Chair now recognizes the gentleman from Maryland.
He did it
Mr.
with a
Ivey.
straight face, too. He had me fooled there. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did want to follow up on a couple of the answers that you gave a few minutes ago with respect to, I guess it's the Division of Labor jurisdiction with respect to the SEC and the CFTC, and also the collectibles comment. With respect to some of the meme coin issues that I asked about a moment ago, my understanding is that the Trump meme website says that they're not intended to be or to be subject of an investment opportunity, investment contract, or security of any type. And so it sounds like they're talking about this in terms of it being a gift. It appears the Trump group is not soliciting money in exchange for an investment or tangible product, but soliciting money in exchange for nothing. That is asking for a gift that will benefit them personally. And that would raise emolument clause issues potentially, especially since it appears that many of the investors in these vehicles are foreign investors. I wanted to see if you could clarify for me what you meant by the collectibles comment and whether you think if it is a collectible, does that mean SEC has the jurisdiction over it, CFTC or some other entity? Who's guarding the hen house right now, basically? And then the other part too is it a gift or is it something else?
Well, thanks for the question. I don't really know, other than what I've read in the paper about, this particular coin or, what its, the attributes are to it. But I can say in general, is what I was talking about before, that, these sorts of issuances are for, it's a collectible like a baseball card or whatever. And the Congresswoman had mentioned Beanie Babies. But so the people buy all sorts of things for collectability. And that's kind of, obviously the way of the world there. But, as far as the other attributes, if it fits within, and this is why I think we need clear rules of the road. Right now, what really governs is this 1946 decision regarding orange groves that the Supreme Court came down with, called Howey versus SEC, and so it sets out various attributes for investment contracts. So
before the chairman cuts me off from a time standpoint, just to follow up, I'll get the Steny treatment. I guess I get a little extra time. While this determination is being made, these are tens of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars that are floating around. And it's especially concerning for two reasons. One is the overlap with Mr. Sun's case that is before the SEC. It's on pause right now, but it's still pending. And the other is because, the president and his family are getting hundreds of millions of dollars, apparently, through these vehicles. It seems to me somebody needs to be taking a look at this now. Now, you've said that you can't talk about whether you have an open investigation or not. And you did talk about how investigations can be triggered, I guess, through some sort of internal box. Can it be triggered by a request from Congress to conduct an investigation on these issues? Because you've got at least one letter with respect to the insider trading piece. You've got another letter that raises these transactions with respect to the meme coins. Are those sufficient to generate or initiate an investigation at the SEC on these matters?
Well, first of all, we take very seriously letters from Congress, and I commit. So unlike what I understand in the past, I commit that we will respond to letters from Congress. But with respect to this particular issue, again, there are a lot of very ambitious and smart people in the enforcement division, and so I do
appreciate that, but it doesn't get much bigger than this. If it's a constitutional violation with respect to the emoluments clause, somebody needs to be looking at this now. And I don't know if that's you. I don't know if this is the CFTC, although you said the two of you meet, and to make sure, quote, nothing falls between the cracks. We can't let this fall through the cracks, and we can't let it drag out. You all need to make a determination soon, I think, and start looking at this if you haven't already, just to make sure we're moving in the right direction and to restore the public confidence that we talked about earlier. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I thank you.
Thank you very much. The chair now recognizes the gentle lady from Iowa for any questions she may have in the second round.
Thank you. Just a few more, Mr. Chairman. Thank you again for being here. Last week, the SEC announced that certain confidential information filed by investment managers on Form N-Port was accidentally made public. In 2022, SEC enforcement staff inappropriately accessed documents in administrative law cases being considered by the SEC. And then in 2016, a foreign hacker gained access to the SEC database. And we know that they were able to result in $4.1 million in illegal profits as a result of that hack. So these are just a couple of the examples, certainly where that trust for American investors is put at risk and violated. So how will you plan to address some of those concerns about the retention of data, some of these bigger cybersecurity vulnerabilities? We know we have many adversaries who are looking to exploit those weaknesses, and then the potential misuse of sensitive investor information as a result of that.
Well, thank you, Congresswoman. I completely share your concern, it dumbfounds me that this sort of thing happens. And so we at the SEC take very, very seriously the information and the obligations that we have to disseminate information, the information that we collect, and especially on the confidentiality of what supposedly is confidential. So we're looking into that, and that's one reason why I really am happy for the help to look at our information technology system. It's time for a good scrubbing and spring cleaning to see where the gaps are, how we can undergird it and make it better. Because I had the SEC's database was for personnel information was hacked by, I think, the Chinese, something probably about 20 years ago, 15 years ago, something like that. So my own information is out there. So with that in mind, I feel that obviously we need to come to a good understanding of how we can improve, and we'll be discussing with you and the administration about what may be necessary to do that.
Yeah, it's certainly alarming when your own information is compromised, right? I obviously, as a member of Congress, ours was compromised in the DC HealthLink hack a few years ago too. So I certainly feel that on a personal level. Just want to zoom in a little bit on the Consolidated Auto Trail, CAT, the largest repository of investor information that's literally ever been created, and likely also one of the least secure. And as you're aware, the CAT did collect a lot of sensitive information, personally identifiable information on every single American investor, making that information particularly vulnerable to cyber criminals who then want to steal identities, or, as you mentioned, China hacking many of our foreign adversaries who will seek to potentially even blackmail Americans with that data, manipulate our markets. I mean, this could be really, really egregious for the American economy. So, you talk a little bit about some of the IT improvements that you might need, but what steps are you taking to really protect American investors and our markets from some of these vulnerabilities presented by CAT right now?
Well, as I mentioned before, we're reviewing, plan to review the Consolidated Audit Trail for its benefits and the costs, and then the potential vulnerabilities. So all that's will be under consideration. But again, as far as shoring up the defenses and the integrity of our systems, that's incredibly critical, obviously, especially with all the information that the SEC handles. And so I pledge to really focus on that and get the best minds to work on how we can do it and how to maybe restructure things around that.
Do you think DOJ could be helpful in that case? I know they've been coming in and finding in many cases there's duplicative technologies, again, a need for investment in specific places. Have you been able to work with them and their team on some suggestions maybe for what might be improved?
They already have been inside the network, and so now as they've looked at overlapping contracts and efficiencies, I think the savings is up to $90 million that they've identified. So that's a great start, and they're not finished yet.
Let's redirect that $90 million to better IT practices. I think that's a good approach. Thank you, Mr.
Amen.
Chairman.
Okay,
I yield back.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The Now recognize the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Edwards, for any second-round questions he may have.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I get another chance. Chairman Atkins, earlier this month you stated that a key priority of your chairmanship would be to develop a rational regulatory framework for crypto assets that establishes clear rules of the road for the issuance, custody, and trading of crypto assets while continuing to discourage those bad actors from violating the law. In order to fulfill that mission, former acting chairman Mark Udea established a crypto task force on January 21. How much funding will that task force require?
Well, I'm not sure exactly. I mean, it's staffed by current employees, and Commissioner Peirce is leading it. So it's not taking any additional funding. These people have been, parts of the workforce now for a while. They're experienced.
Despite the task force only being assembled a few months ago in January, have there been any notable findings thus far that you can report?
Well, that's still under development. They are engaging in roundtables, and we've had, I believe, 3 or so of them so far, and so with another couple to come, and then we'll be huddling internally to figure out steps forward after that. But this is part of an ongoing process, but I really salute Commissioner Peirce and her team for focusing on this. It's way overdue, and I think we'll be able to make progress. And then whatever happens in Congress, that will help undergird what we do, and we're ready, willing, and able to work with y'all.
When do you expect the first report from that task force?
I don't know. I'd have to talk to Commissioner Peirce about that, but our steps forward. But we should be having something, I think, here in the next few months, and with proposed steps forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll yield.
With that, our time is concluded. I would like to thank Chairman Atkins for being here today. There may be some members who didn't appear today, tied up in other committees. I'm sure that they wanted to be here, but they would like to submit questions for the record. Please submit any questions for the record to the subcommittee staff within 7 days. And with that, the subcommittee stands adjourned.
Thank you.
David.